my story of visual rhetoric. It all started when I was scrolling on my phone watching videos. And my father, oh my god.
Hello besties! If you see this on your FYP, this message might be for you. I did not manifest you to see this, so take what resonates and leave what doesn't. You may take nothing at all. I have here my favorite deck card for Christmas season. It's called RVA card, and for now, we will be finding out what reading you need the most right now. So I'm gonna be shuffling 4 to 5 cards for today. So guys, how's life going? Are you happy? Are you tired? Or maybe are you drained with doing your thesis? There you go. Okay besties, I can see here that we will be focusing on a timely and relevant subject matter right now. So in this reading, we will be discussing how linguistic boundaries should not limit the influence of the art of rhetoric in visual terms. So the area of reading is divided into 5 parts. And these are, first we're gonna be tackling the history of rhetoric and rhetorical devices, followed by the history of visual rhetoric and arguments between rhetorical devices. This one is my favorite so far. And followed by areas of focus and its approaches. And lastly, we will be reviewing and providing a conclusion. Bestie, so now let's dive in. So I want you to imagine the life that we are living right now. If you can see and observe, it is a multifaceted maze full of visual imagery and verbal messages. And many people believe that its value in the emergence of technology is a blessing to the extent of making life, a little less complicated. Nevertheless, it still depends on how persuasive and appealing an image is to be understood and analyzed, right? Just like the relevance of verbal rhetoric. So now, we're gonna dive into some notable figures who contributed to the history of rhetoric. When we're talking about rhetoric, it is simply the art of persuasion. So the term rhetoric refers to the theories and principles that are used to evaluate and analyze text. So when rhetoric first emerged, oration, the oral delivery of speeches, was the sole focus of the discipline. This study is focused on modes of persuasion, and it is obviously a type of demonstration since we are most likely to be convinced when we believe something has been proved, right? Therefore, rhetoric is mostly concerned with the effect rather than eliciting a response. Remember that, bestie, okay? I can see here that Aristotle played a big role in unfolding this subject. In his treatise entitled The Art of Rhetoric, he defines rhetoric as the faculty of observing, in any given case, the available means of persuasion. Also, Aristotle was interested in rhetoric since he lived in a period when persuading people of philosophical ideas required a very convincing personality. He stated that it was no use having a good idea if one lacked rhetorical activity. I can see here that he views and examines the concept of rhetoric through a descriptive rather than a prescriptive lens. And according to him, there are 3 different ways in persuading an audience. First, we have ethos. It depends on the personal character of the speaker. Basically, it's the credibility of the person. Followed by pathos. Pathos, it's like putting an audience into a certain frame of mind which steers their emotion. And lastly, we have logos. It is to reason logically, to prove a truth or apparent truth by means of the persuasive arguments. So our next contributor on rhetoric is Cicero. Cicero produced multiple treatises on the subject over his lifetime, including Topics, on Oration, and on Invention. And long after the Renaissance, schools continued to follow his writings on eloquence. So the value of a liberal education was underlined by Cicero's rhetorical strategy. Mackay remarked that a man would be able to relate to any audience by having a liberal education. Cicero believed that a man needed knowledge of history, politics, arts, literature, ethics, law, and medicine in order to be convinced. And did you know that Cicero first outlined the 5 canons of rhetoric? These are invention, arrangement, elocution style, memory, and delivery. Okay, bestie, bottom of the deck, Kenneth Burke. So, Kenneth Burke and his dramatistic method. Rhetoric, according to Burke, it is the use of language as a symbolic means of inducing cooperation in beings that by nature respond to symbols. And one of his main contributions to rhetorical analysis is the dramatistic method. It uses the 5 components of drama, which are the act, scene, agent, agency, and purpose. And it explains how and why people use symbols to communicate with one another.
Aha! So Aristotle, Cicero, Burke are some of the main contributors of rhetoric. If rhetoric is the art of persuasion, are there any tools used to effectively persuade the audience? Let me see more.
Now, let's have a quick review of some of the well-known rhetorical devices that are still used to this day. First, metaphor, metonymy, synecdoche, rhetorical question, antithesis, irony, paradox, hyperbole, alliteration, and lastly, anaphora. Okay, besties, so now I'm gonna be shuffling last 4 cards for this reading. Relative to these rhetorical devices, Macquarie and Meek further discussed, as you can see here on the screen, that there are 3 levels of figuration taxonomy, with all the figures organized into a gradient form, from less deviant to more deviant. According to them, the first level is the rhetorical devices. So, Macquarie and Meek claim that using the property of artful deviation, it adds a little bit of spice or interest to the advertisements in the audience expectations. So, technically, rhetorical figures as a whole are divided and clearly classified into 2 more levels. On the second level of the taxonomy, we have the schemes and tropes. Schemes are distinguished from tropes as 2 different modes of figuration. Tropes deviate through irregular usage, while schemes deviate through excessive regularity. Tropes are more interested in semantic deviation, and schemes are more interested in variations of form. And there are 4 master tropes as further discussed by Chandler, and these are metaphor, metonymy, synecdoche, and irony. So in general, schemes are more direct and easier to process, while tropes, on the other hand, need more context or knowledge to be understood. So I'm gonna give you example. Okay, so for instance, rhyme is a scheme because it uses unexpected sound repetitions. Alliteration is likewise classified as a scheme because of its regularity in using same sounds in the beginning of a group of words, while synecdoche is regarded as a trope for it demands some thought and effort to comprehend the part of something to represent the whole thing. Okay? Now let's move on to the last level or the third level of taxonomy. So, specific rhetorical operations. Under this, the basic and complex activities that build schemes are what we call repetition and reversal. Whereas the simple and complex operations that build tropes are substitution and destabilization. So through these levels of figuration taxonomy, we can clearly see the rhetorical figures as systematically and properly arranged according to their level of deviation. That is all for today, bestie. I hope you learned something from me. Thank you for spending your precious time for this reading of Rhetoric. Remember to take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
Wow! This tarot reader really caught my attention. I admit that I got so drawn into visual rhetoric. Visual rhetoric. Wow! I want to learn more!